Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Blood Red podcast. I'm your host, Keifer MacDonald. Today I'm joined by Theo Squires. Theo, how's things?
Yeah, it's been okay. Been a weird couple of weeks, hasn't it? But at least we were back to football yesterday in rather surreal circumstances. But a fitting tribute to Diogo Jota that I'm sure we'll get onto quite early in the show.
Absolutely. And Doyle, you're back a few weeks off?
Three weeks off? Yeah, nothing happened in that time, unfortunately, so we'll crack on.
Before we get into today's episode, shout out to our sponsors, NordVPN, who have got a new product called Saily. To get the best discount off your NordVPN plan, go to NordVPN/BloodRed. Our link will give you 4 extra months on a 2-year plan, and there's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. The new product, Saily, is a new app available for download which will allow you reliable and affordable internet access on your trip abroad. Saily is a new eSIM service app brought to you by the creators of NordVPN. It offers affordable prices, helps you avoid scams, protects privacy, and 24/7 support. It also saves mobile data. Jensen, have you used Saily yet?
Not yet. I've not been on holiday yet, but it is on the list. I thought for a minute producer Ian had set you up there with that description, but I think you rescued it at the end. You've actually told us what it is, which is more than needed.
Is it privacy or privacy? How would you pronounce it? There you go.
Privacy. Yeah, I'd say privacy.
What would you say? It's like advertisement or advertisement. What would you say?
Oh, we're in the north, so privacy, yeah.
Okay. Anyway.
They always say privacy.
Depends how fancy I'm feeling.
When we're looking to download Saily in your app store and use our code BloodRed at checkout to get an exclusive 50% off your first purchase. For more information, please go to our episode podcast description box for further details and click saily.com/bloodred. A bit of a mouthful. Theo, Liverpool were back in action yesterday at Preston. First pre-season friendly, of course, the first game since the tragic passing of Diogo Jota and his brother Andre Silva earlier this month. Obviously, you and Doyle were both at Deepdale. Do you want to just kind of run us through the emotions? I think we've kind of all seen the pictures and the videos and obviously the tributes that had come over the last 10 days or so, but it was a really emotional day, wasn't it, at Preston yesterday?
Yeah, it was a tough day, but it was a fitting way to remember both brothers. You could tell early on that Liverpool supporters were going to make it a day to remember. I think as soon as the top of Deepdale was coming into sight for me when I was driving up to the stadium, you're already seeing your first Diogo Jota shirts, and that there were so many tributes around the stadium, whether it was fans wearing his shirt, carrying flags, banners, the Spud fan outside. They had even got a tribute to Diogo Jota on it. I know they're quite big on TikTok. The Preston sponsors, is it Spud Brothers?
Spud Brothers, yeah.
So yeah, they did their own tribute, but there was so much more. Like you get inside to the game, we saw obviously that those wonderful scenes where was it Sean Maguire's partner, his wife, singing "You'll Never Walk Alone," and was it "Can't Stop Falling in Love"?
Can't help
falling in love. Yeah, I'm not good at music, am I? But I've done all right there.
Elvis Presley, have you heard of him?
I've heard of him, yes. Okay. That's the second time you've asked that question today.
It is, yeah.
But yeah, it was just really fitting and lovely to see this tribute to Diogo Jota and this celebration of him. Fans were asked to take to their seats, I think, for 1:45, so they could be in place for the tributes. But Liverpool fans were in their seats well before that, singing his chant loud, and that was just something that was ringing ears throughout the whole afternoon. During the game, there was one 10-minute rendition when the whole stadium just stood up and applauded alongside the fans. And then again at the end when the players went to the Bill Shankly Cop and did the exact same thing. It was a very moving day. It's that first step on a very slow road to recovery because Liverpool is still very much a club in mourning here. It's not something that you're just going to wake up and it's going to be all fine overnight. It's unprecedented times for them. They've lost one of their dearest players in such tragic circumstances, but it's nice that they can come together, they can be unified and just remember him in these nice ways.
I mean, Doyle, you've covered an awful amount of football games during your career. So many years.
I was
just going to say, we see those scenes at the end where Theo was talking about them, where the players are kind of clapping back to the fans and they're all going through the chant together. I mean, have you ever seen anything kind of so like players and fans so unified like that?
I think just talking generally in a general point of view is that if you're working for Liverpool or playing for Liverpool or got anything to do with them and the way they're running the club, is that when you join, there's not like a handbook that says this is how we're going to cope or handle or deal with things like this, because you can't. And what happens then is you fall back on whatever's happened in your life, because everybody that's listening to this and everybody sat around here will have lost somebody, a close relative or a loved one or something like that, or not necessarily in the manner that, the shock manner that happened with Diogo Jota. And I think that is the one thing that, above anything, that Liverpool can. I think you don't want to say take credit, but you know what I mean by this. It's like everything else has gone out the window, and they've just relying on what they're like as people. Yeah. And you mentioned about the scene at the end about the togetherness. Well, for Liverpool as a club, and it's not just Liverpool, it's most sporting establishments or football, football, sporting establishments, any team kind of sport where there's a lot of people involved, often the success depends on them being together. Any team that's going to win something, they need to be together. And they form all these bonds because they're training. We see them playing a game possibly twice a week, but they're training almost every single day. They're together. Some of them will spend time together away from the pitch. So they all know each other pretty well. And for Liverpool in particular, you've seen under Jurgen Klopp, he was quite keen on the bond when he first came in. He was like, everybody needs to know the name of everybody else, whether they're playing in goal or whether the canteen staff. Everybody was on a level playing field. Nobody was treated any differently just because they earned an awful lot more money than somebody else. And that takes time to develop, and we've seen it now because it also transferred to the fans. The fans bought into that. It's carried on under Arne Slot, and we've seen what happens when something tragic happens, like happened with Diogo Jota, is you get scenes like you see at the end of the game. I know before the game, that was very touching, and the moving rendition that Theo's just spoken about, of the songs and the laying of the wreath. That was all planned. What happened at the end of the game wasn't planned, and it was always going to be not so much interesting, but what were the Liverpool fans going to do? And we knew they were going to sing the song, but it was at the end, and I think it was that kind of moment, like it was almost like nobody wanted to move and nobody wanted to stop.
Yeah.
And so it went on for like, you think a minute, and you went, it's like 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5. I think it was about 6 minutes in the end. And then the Liverpool fans broke into singing Champions and then just Liverpool. And that's when the players, they gave their thanks, and then everybody went back and went home. And that was quite symbolic, because this is just, as Theo said, this is just the first game. There's going to be the games in Hong Kong and Japan, and having been outside to Hong Kong, and I've been to Thailand as well, and Singapore, and seen Liverpool play, is the fans are extremely intense and passionate anytime, but given the unique circumstances and situation at the moment, I can only imagine what that's going to be like, and that's going to be difficult on the players. And then they're going to come back and they're going to have the first friendlies at Anfield, which will be obviously 2 games played on the same day, and then they'll be going to Wembley, and then they'll be playing the first home competitive game against Bournemouth, and then they'll be playing an away game at Newcastle. Newcastle have already, I think, they've said they're going to be paying some kind of tribute. I think it's the supporters are going.
The fans group,
yes, the fans group said they're going to do it, and that's another 5 or 6 weeks. So it's going to be like this for a while.
And then even when you go to Wolves or Wolves,
exactly, it's going to be like that for a while, and you could see on the faces of some of the, don't want to get into too much details, but it was difficult for some players more so than others, and that's the way that things are. There's no proper way to grieve over these things. You can't tell anybody how to grieve, and some of them found it more difficult than others. And
well, like you've just said about, we've all lost family or friends. Or Alisson Becker's probably one of the chief examples.
Exactly, yeah.
Losing his dad in emotional circumstances, and his social media tribute to Jota was probably one of the more moving ones, because he's got that experience. And we see these people, these footballers, as footballers, but they're human beings as well. They've got all their own experiences, and that's why some of them will be deeply affected by it. Some of them won't be able to be at their best, be able to play football, won't be able to focus on football, going through the motions. Everyone reacts to it differently. It's just a very tough time for all of them involved. I had goosebumps when all the tributes were taking place, and it was tough at times to get your head on it, to go, you've got a job to do. But this is just watching and reporting on it, whereas these people, they know Diogo Jota personally. They've been teammates with him for 5 years. It's your heart goes out to him. It's how the hell are they supposed to pull it all together? It's just unprecedented, and it's going to be such a challenge, but they've got each other.
You saw it during the game, though, that it's very much like you often get told, certain players in the past have had off-field, nothing like this, but off-field troubles, and they go, I actually just really love playing the game because it allows me 90 minutes just to concentrate on something else for a bit. And I think there might be quite a lot of that. I mean, I don't think the game's necessarily be so much of a problem. I think it's just the everyday being at the AXA he's, they realise, because he was such a prominent personality, Diogo Jota. He was kind of like, you saw, obviously I've not been in on the podcast since it's happened, this is my first time, but you saw that Andy Robertson, what he said, they called him Jota because he's the most, the most British foreigner that he knew.
Touching was the thing that I found really touching was that even like non-playing staff and kind of the tributes they put up to Jota, it kind of told you the measure of the man, didn't it? He wasn't.
Well, I mean, those of us, I've interviewed him a couple of times, not loads of times, but he always come across quite well, and I think he was actually one of the few players who followed me on social media as well. So he obviously was aware. So
which one did he follow you on?
I think it was Instagram. But when these things like this happen, you always get people say, "Oh, what a lovely fella, or a lovely woman, or a lovely girl, or a lovely boy they were." But this time, it was Jose Mourinho, wasn't it? He said this, and he said, "Listen, he was, and everybody said exactly the same thing." I mean, that's no consolation overall to his family and his friends, and to a lesser extent his teammates, the club. But that gives an understanding of why there will be some people who are so massively affected by this, because as Theo said, that some of them may not have lost people, and they'll be like, "Oh, I wasn't really expecting this," and they don't really know what to do. And this is something that they're only going to find out over time, which is why it kind of not so much put a question mark over Liverpool's pre-season preparations and going into the new campaign, but it does add an extra layer of complexity to it, because even from the fact that Florian Wirtz wasn't involved, he wasn't even there. Ibrahima Konate wasn't there. I mean, Van Dijk, Diaz, Alisson, McAllister, they certainly were there at the end, but a lot of them have had a disrupted pre-season, so they weren't going to be risked. So already Liverpool, and we're going to have to come to a point at some point where that's why it was good that they got the game out of the way, because it's almost like a slight step towards normality, because that first game against Bournemouth isn't going to get moved. That is, by then, the players, no matter what kind of headspace they're in, everyone's going to have to just continue. And I know I'm not trying to sound crass, but that's just what happens. And
it's the nature of life, isn't it?
And it was interesting that Arne Slot mentioned in his interview that he did with LFC TV before the game, that he said, I spoke to the players and we were like, well, what's the best? We're all thinking like, what's the best thing to say? What's the best thing to do? What's the most appropriate thing to do? And they settled on, well, if Diogo Jota was here, he'd just be like, let's just crack on. Let's just do what we have to do, because he was the epitome of that.
Yeah, I said this in Blood Red on Saturday, that if Diogo Jota was there, he'd want them to play, he'd want them to win, he'd want them to go into the new season and be going for the Premier League title again, going for the Champions League. And it will come a point where there is going to be a mental toll, and you don't know how they're going to react. You don't know what is going to take that toll going into the season. But all they can do is, as they do every season, take it one game at a time. And that is what that squad's very good at, and it has got this unifying factor behind them, but it is tough. It's probably a good thing that they've got the first game out the way, but it's also a good thing that they've now got 12 days out of the spotlight where they can get the fitness levels up. They're together working hard in pre-season, because they are playing catch-up in terms of they've had to start late because of everything. And then just see how they react in Asia, because while they've been able to do the game at Preston and not have any media commitments at all, you'd imagine, unless they're rewriting some of the contracts for the pre-season tour, that there will be appearances. They might have to go in front of cameras, and then it's the spotlight again. And it's going to have to be handled very, very sensitively, but it is another step towards it's normality, but it's not going to be normal for him again, but just what life is for him now.
I think it's going to be important for the senior players to set the example again. And not just necessarily because they are senior footballers, but because they are almost certainly going to be older. They've just experienced more in life than some of the younger ones. And I think that's something that I think Liverpool have shown good leadership so far. Certainly Van Dijk as a captain. Yeah. We've seen Mohamed Salah, Andy Robertson, people like that. Arne Slot and the rest of the coaching staff are going to be. They'll have greater experience. They're going to have to impart that on some of the younger players. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
absolutely. I was just going to say, Theo, what Doyle just touched on there, the way kind of Liverpool handled it, and we saw the kind of interview that Slot did with LFC TV before the game, and the touching tributes they made. Even when they announced the retirement of his shirt number on Friday night, a few people pointed out that was at 20 minutes past 8.
Yeah, that was very much.
Yeah, that was deliberate.
So that was some really classy touches that Liverpool done. I mean, Dolly said at the top of the show, there's no handbook or kind of way to kind of negotiate these such unprecedented situations. But I think the way Liverpool have handled it has been, sensational, hasn't it? They've kind of really done everything with it. It's such a classy touch, haven't they?
Yeah, it's one where you've got to look at it as these are human beings, and they consulted with the players and the staff ahead of playing the Preston game, because it's not just a playing squad, it is all the backroom staff. And I don't just mean in terms of coaches, this is right down to people at the canteen, the cleaners. Everyone there has got that personal relationship with Diogo Jota. And then obviously they're going to consult the family, his widow Ruta, and his parents, who heart goes out to them. They've lost 2 kids, not just one, in such tragic circumstances. We saw they were at Anfield on Friday looking at the memorial site along with the players. And the number 20, retiring that, yes, absolutely the right thing to do. Diogo Jota, Liverpool's forever number 20. He's never left the club. And it's a big testament to him that he's the first person to ever receive this honour. And you'd like to think he's going to be the last person to ever receive this honour, that they don't need to go to that level again. But there will be more tributes to him. I'm not sure what the club have in mind, but this is a good starting point. Obviously, there'll be more goal celebrations dedicated to him, as we saw from Gakpo and Nunez. Maybe there'll be undershirts or training tops or something when they're back at Anfield. And we'll just see what else they've got in store, because it's going to be a very emotional season for Liverpool Football Club. But they've had so many tragedies before, and the fan base knows how to deal with it. The club knows how to deal with it. They manage it really well. And it's just a sad fact that they know how to do it. They've got so much experience of it, but that is what they're good at. They know how to unify. They know how to put their arms around each other, go, right, this is how we're going to move forward. And Preston was the first step of that again.
Absolutely. Dolly, we'll move on to some of the football then. Liverpool 3, Preston 1. I'll kind of throw at you quite broad. I mean, we'll stay on the first half, start chronologically. I mean, what did we kind of learn? Was there any kind of standout players for you? I thought Rio and Ganova was a, kind of, I didn't catch the game, but I saw some of his highlights this morning. He looked kind of really live, really brave.
Did you see him on TikTok?
No, I didn't
Did you
actually.
TikTok?
Saw him in the office about 10 minutes ago, the highlights. But, looked really brave on the ball. He kind of always looking to beat his man. Trey Naoni as well, a few nice clips from him. I mean, who kind of stood out in that first half 11 from you?
Well, it was those two. And I'm funny enough, Lucas Stevenson as well, who was playing at centre-back. He's normally he started off as a defensive midfielder. He played right back in the last summer. And then he spent the season on loan at Dundee United, where he's played right wing-back or right midfield. So he's always been he's always been a versatile one, and he looked
even at academy level, to be fair.
Yeah. But he looked like somebody who just spent a year playing senior football regularly, so he didn't look in any way bothered. It was nice to see Joe Gomez playing. I think people forgot he'd been out for so long, and I know he was on the bench for the last couple of games, but he didn't come on last season. So nice to see him back. I think both Ungamoa and Yoni, you can tell that they've certainly Ungamoa has physically developed over the past 6 months. He's got a lot taller. I think with Yoni, I don't think he's going to get any taller, but he just, without looking like he's gone big, he just looks more confident in himself.
Yeah.
He put in a couple of strong challenges, which I know, again, going back to what I said before, is the game's actually quite competitive for a friendly, and I think the players were quite keen just to get certain things out of the system. They weren't around booting each other. You know what I mean? I'm right. I'll go back to when after Hillsborough happened and Liverpool didn't play for a couple of weeks. They played Everton in a game, and then they played the semi-final against Forest, which obviously got abandoned, and they won. And then they played Forest in the league game. It was one of the dirtiest games I think I can ever remember, where both sets of players clearly had a lot of pent up, and they were. But anyway, that's besides the point. That's not what happened, but I think that they'll have benefited from just playing and that kind of sense of, well, actually, we're getting back to what we normally do. And I think that kind of helped the youngsters shine in a way, because, they would have had a little bit more to prove than some of the other players. And I don't think it was a surprise it was those three that stood out in the first half. I mean, the goalkeeper, Mamadashvili, kind of felt a bit sorry for him. It's been a tough one for him, and possibly some of the other new signings to come into a squad that's, it's like they won't have known the player, or they will have known of the player, obviously, but they won't have known. Exactly, basically. So that's a tough one for them. I thought he did okay as well. There weren't really any poor performers in the first half. Liverpool certainly played better in the first half than they did in the second half overall, although I think part of that might be down to the fact that I think Preston seemed to put on a few more stronger players in the second half, I thought anyway.
And there was more debuts in the second half.
Yeah.
So the first half was players who played together for
Yeah,
however many
there
years.
is that. So, yeah, I think Ungamoa, Inyoni, Stevenson, and the only disappointment possibly, I know you touched on this in your analysis, was Chiesa. But even then, he still did really well to play a massive part in the opening goal for
Yeah.
Conor Bradley. So,
Nice change of pace, wasn't it?
well, exactly. If only he'd had that when he was through on goal, he still ended up getting a shot off. Like,
I nearly called you Rio then. Theo,
was it Leo?
Yeah, Leo.
Wasn't it? Yeah, Leo.
I still get, I think it's one of the guys from Norway when he sends some questions in, very much keeping that joke going.
Leo.
So it calls it Leo, yeah.
Well, Theo, I'll stick to your real name for now. But in terms of Engamoa, I know you wrote something the other day, set to kind of sign his first professional deal with the club when he turns, was it 17 next month? I mean, it's scary to think that he is only still 16, and the fact that we saw him, 6 months ago in that FA Cup tie against Accrington Stanley at Anfield, where he was really kind of brave and kind of lit the game up there. When a young player comes through like that, what is it that you're looking for? Is it the player that takes a risk, or is it one that, doesn't try to do it all? What is it that you're looking for, like that catches your eye, kind of thing?
A player that doesn't look out of place in the first team. A player that you look at them and you not automatically think it's a teenager, it's a child. It's not someone who fits in. And he was mature in his performance in the fact that he was taking on players, but he was actually doing something with the ball. His head was up. He was picking out his teammates. It wasn't just head down doing.
That's what I meant. Yeah. Doing it all for show and to
exactly.
Look good.
And there was even one where he was trying to lead a counter attack and he tripped over the ball, and it was going to be a good opening for Liverpool. Obviously, that ends. But rather than trying to make up for it, he then just played the simple ball back to the left back. And that's quite mature for a 16-year-old as well. Okay, made a mistake here. Let's keep possession. I saw him at the academy level a couple of times last year, and it wasn't the best time for Liverpool's academy in terms of performances and everything. And he tried to do it too much on his own at times. And maybe that's understandable when you are one of the better players at that level. But he doesn't seem to do that when he's in the first team environment. He's respectful of the players around him, but he's got that confidence in his abilities as well. We can compare it to Ben Doak, who's obviously a very exciting forward in his own right. When he came through, got people off seats the same way Engamoa is, but he doesn't quite have the same decision making in the final third. The final ball's not quite there. Whereas Engamoa, for someone so young, he's making things happen. Like Chiesa did brilliantly for the opening goal, but so did Engamoa. And there's certainly something there that they can work with this season. He only made one appearance last year in that cup game. You'd like to think there'll be more opportunities for him in the upcoming campaign. Caveat of that is there's no major international tournament this summer, so we've said half a dozen players weren't involved in that squad at all. It's like who drops out for them to come in and get pre-season minutes, and then first team are all going to be involved when the campaign actually gets underway. It was a promising start from Engamoa. It's a sign for him that he can be on the fringes. He can have a go in the League Cup, and maybe there's a bit of rotation in the Champions League as well if they name him in the squad, because of it's not the new format anymore, but the revamped format. He's trained with the first team for at least 6 months now, isn't he? Training regularly last year, and he certainly benefited from it. And he didn't look out of place at all in that game. But then I say Trey Onyoni, as Doyle mentioned, did really well as well in terms of getting stuck in. Like he was in this deep midfield role next to Gravenberch, and their frames are quite similar. He's a little bit shorter, but when you're up against a physical Preston midfield, and it was a 3-man midfield because they play with wing backs, you're still winning the ball back, and he had the discipline to, say, cover for Tsimikas or cover for Bradley when they got forward and just filling in that space. And he did similar for like Conor Bradley as well, Gravenberch. So it was impressive from both of them. Like these are players who are elite talents in academy level football, and that's why Liverpool signed them from Leicester and from Chelsea, and it's another encouraging sign for them because you want them to be able to take those next steps with the club.
What I would say about Rio is that, because I don't want to...
Rio or Theo?
No, Rio, definitely Rio. Is that it's very much reminiscent of when Harvey Elliott joined, in that very, very quickly Liverpool's players realised he was quite good, so they had no problem giving him the ball. And I think that was something I noticed very, very on with Harvey Elliott, and I've already seen it with Engamoa. So I think that holds him in good stead. And as Theo said, that comes down to the fact that he's been training with them for on and off for 6 months or so. So they'll know exactly what he's capable of. And he's only 16, isn't he?
Yes.
Still only 16. And Yoni only turned 18 the other week, didn't he? So these are players who, I mean, and Yoni's got another 18 months before he starts thinking like, right, what do I definitely need to be doing here? And Engamoa's got loads of time.
Well, my next question was going to be Engamoa. I mean, talk about turning 17 next month.
Do you remember that? That was only about 3 weeks ago.
Knew that was gonna come. But I mean, what do you do with him at that stage? Because it's probably too early for a loan. I mean, you look at Elliot. He went up to Blackburn.
Yeah,
I think he was slightly older.
I wouldn't be loaning him. No, I mean,
is it one we just drop him in?
It was only last year that he was playing for the under-18, so you can't rush them too much. But it says that they've already played him in the first team in January, didn't they? Against Accrington. I know, totally different standard of opposition. It might depend on the draws that they get. Like, let's just say they get a really, really lower league team at home in the League Cup for the first round that they're in. It's third round, isn't it? They go into third round. They might decide to play him then. But if they end up, playing against Manchester United away, I don't think he's going to be playing in that game. So there is that to it. It's about having that opportunity. But there's no point putting any kind of pressure or any expectation on him.
Absolutely, yeah.
I'm not saying you're doing it, but I'm just saying, generally speaking, there's no point in doing that because at that age, at 16, just go and play wherever. He should, hopefully he's not thinking, I'll play for the first team once I should be playing next week, because we've seen with some players in the past that if you're a youngster and you're pushing to be in the first team and kicking off about it, that you're not, it usually means you shouldn't be anywhere near it. So it's about biding the time. And as Leo said, any others? Any others? No, I can't think of any more at the moment. Cleo? No, that's a girl's name, unfortunately. What was the question? Right, sorry. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So obviously, at that age, it is just about letting them play. They shouldn't have any kind of expectation. And yeah, there have been these players in the past that they've gone far too early. And we've seen, just because necessarily people get into the first team doesn't mean they're definitely going to make it. So there's still a lot of work for him to do.
Yeah.
The thing is, a team that's won the Premier League, so by definition, they are the best team in England, although I believe Chelsea won something last night. So therefore, they're
Donald
now
Trump won something.
They're now the best team in the world somehow. They won that glorified friendly competition. So yeah.
But in terms of Engama, I remember last year there was obviously a hell of a lot of talk when he came to Liverpool, kind of the size of the coupe, and obviously you kind of see the reaction from the Chelsea and how furious they were. I always remember John Terry put something out basically saying how big of a talent he was. I mean, we didn't really get to see an awful lot of that last year because he's obviously in the academy, kind of playing here and there. Sometimes he's in for the cup games. He was with the first team, but that Accrington Stanley game was kind of really one where I thought, wow, there's a serious talent here to kind of have the confidence to beat a man like he was doing. And then we saw that yesterday. Theo, was there anyone else who kind of stood out for you?
I was going to carry on for Engamo for a little bit.
I mean, you can keep singing his praises. I mean, I'm sure he won't mind.
I was just going to point out that everyone's journey is different at academy level. So Harvey Elliott would have been 17 when he went on loan to Blackburn Rovers. But remember, he was doing decent bits at under-21s level, and he'd played more for the first team before that loan came about. Whereas Engamoa, he hadn't, I don't think, played for the under-21s before he made his first team debut. He was with the 18s that little bit longer. And as we said, the academy, it wasn't the best year for it in terms of strength in that squad. So it's different to judge him compared to what's come before, because he took a little bit longer to get into that 21s team. And it's not as though he was scoring or assisting goals for fun, because it was a team that was struggling to get results. But going into the new season, they've got a new head coach in Rob Page, who's managed Gareth Bale and all these superstars, at academy level, but also at a higher level with the Wales national team. So with him, keep him with the 21s for 6 months and then assess in January. I would see how he's progressed, see how involved he is with the first team. And with the other ones who caught my eye, I thought Connor Bradley was very, very good. He gets his goal, but obviously he was up and down and just doing what Connor Bradley does. He was popping up everywhere in that final third, really. He was almost number 10 for some of that game. But then it was his hard work defensively that ends up stopping the 10-minute rendition of Diogo Jota's chant when he's, was it Thierry Small?
Yes.
He forced off the pitch.
Former Everton youngest player in Everton's history.
Nunez did well when he came on, gets his goal and a very good dummy for the assist. Unofficial assist, I suppose, because Ben Doak gets the final touch there. But yeah, it was just...
I'm trying to take it off him.
But it was more collectively.
He's
as
had
a
to go
team.
at his decision making, and then he has an assist. You're trying to take it off him.
He did so well to win that ball back as well
He
in the
did, yeah.
first place.
Up to Rio. Someone said here about Ngamo, shades of Raheem Sterling. Doyle, you'll probably be able to recall kind of his rise a bit better than me, but I always remember there was one game in...
Well,
no, I just mean kind of, obviously you were working
like,
as a journalist
I was
at that
joking
time
about. I was joking about you being 17 last week. Yeah.
But I always remember with Sterling, there was an FA Youth Cup game. Was it Southend when he scored 4 or 5 goals? Yeah, and kind of the way him and Rio kind of cut in from the same side, it was quite reminiscent of that, wasn't it? Really.
Don't forget Lewis. Was it Kumas who scored loads or Dan's in that game against Arsenal when they won 7-1?
Yeah.
And of course Kumas played, and I'd imagine Dan's might have.
He scored that free kick, Dan's, didn't he?
Dan's was there, wasn't he, yesterday as well? So I think if he's obviously had some fitness issues over the past 12 months, and I think if he'd been fit, he might have had a bit of a run out as well. Yeah. So there's a lot of players there, and for Ngamo, I just wouldn't. I wouldn't be looking to rush him out on loan. To be honest, he's still very, very, very young.
In terms of the second half, Theo, a few new faces: Jeremy Frimpong, Kirkes, a new fullback look for Liverpool. Obviously, that was kind of what defined the Klopp era, wasn't it? How successful the fullbacks were. I mean, what did you make of that new partnership on that side? Obviously, we saw Andy Robertson was used as a centre half as opposed to a left back. I mean, does that tell us anything? Or
they don't use a centre back now, do they? They've got Andy Robertson if Tsimikas stays as well. No, the fullbacks when they came on, they did well, but it's hard to judge them in a pre-season friendly when the players they're joining are still grieving for a teammate. Like there wasn't these amazing bits of attacking play particularly, but they showed their strengths defensively. Like Frimpong, obviously he's rapid, isn't he? So he's going to get back and win the ball, and he certainly showed that pace a couple of times. The one that stood out for me for Kirkes was his strength when he was shoving off a couple of challenges trying to win the ball, and then because he's off balance he loses it, but then he's just diving in with his head to try and win it back. Putting his body on the line. It's very hard to judge them early on, especially when they've come on at half time. But it was encouraging signs. I'm sure we'll see more of them on the tour and then when the season gets underway. But it's strength all around in those fullback positions. Like at the moment, you wouldn't be able to say with absolute confidence who's starting the first game of the season because Bradley's obviously had a good game himself. He's done really well for Liverpool since breaking into the first team. And the left-back situation is a little bit up in the air, isn't it? 3 good options there, 3 internationals. You'd expect one of them will go. But yeah, there's plenty of competition there.
No, absolutely.
I couldn't get over how small they were.
Both the
I was like, they're tiny. And obviously I'd seen Kirkes play, but in a long time since I'd seen Frimpong. I don't know, it wasn't. I saw him play again. Yeah, it wasn't that long ago.
So last November was
exactly,
a long time ago.
That does feel a long time ago. But I was like, Frimpong in particular looks extremely slight. Yeah. So I would not be surprised at set pieces or crosses they'll be looking. Opponents will be looking like, let's get it to the far post, as it were.
I suppose it bulk up. I mean, we saw Trent do that kind of in the second half of his Liverpool career, didn't he? Put on a bit more muscle mass.
Yeah. I mean, it's fair. I mean, obviously, they've only played 45 minutes, and that's just first impressions. Yeah, Frimpong is fast. I thought Kirkes was quite interesting in the sense that he was looking to play balls not over the top, but through the lines, down the left to get Gakpo in, I think Nunez was one of them. I think Kumas got onto one of them as well. So he's got that, and obviously I haven't seen a lot of Bournemouth, certainly seen a lot of him, but you see the highlights and you see him getting down the byline, crossing it. But that was a different kind of part to his game, and I know that I've got to mention Trent. Liverpool are going to miss him in the sense that he was such a good passer of the ball and could play all these different kind of varieties of pass, and his range of pass, and we saw that so many times. Even if not all of them came off, it still put doubt in the defender's mind, the opposition mind, what he was going to do next. And I think often that was an undervalued aspect to his game because you couldn't always tell what he was going to do. So it was difficult to block off what he was attempting to achieve. But I think with Kirkes and Frimpong, even for those 45 minutes, you can see they're completely different. For a start, Frimpong could well be playing right midfield. Can't ever see Kirkes playing on left midfield, but Frimpong definitely play right midfield. For example, when Salah goes to the African Cup of Nations later in the year. So they are different. Again, you can't really judge them because the 2 centre-backs were Andy Robertson and Amaro Nallo. And Nallo, obviously, the last time he played, he got sent off after for about 4 minutes. And for the first 15 or 20 minutes, you could tell he was playing on his mind still a little bit, yeah. But then after that, last 25 minutes, he settled down. And I think that's just something that he had to go through. And unfortunately for him, it was live on television to the nation.
No, absolutely. You speak then about kind of the way Trent and Robertson were able to kind of like create passes out of nothing. I always remember that goal against City, the 3-1 November 2019, and Trent he looks like he's going to play it back to the goalkeeper. He just curls it with his left foot, sets Robertson away, and then Robertson takes a touch out of his foot and curls it into Salah.
Yeah.
And just like that, they've taken like 4 or 5 City players out of the game. I thought the interesting thing with Kirkers is that he seemed to do a lot of underlapping as well, as opposed to like traditionally.
That comes down to that's why he was in positions to play the kind of passes that I mentioned.
Yeah.
Because you can't really do that from when you bang out on the wing. So whether or not it's not quite an inverted fullback, but it's an inversion of a fullback.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have that.
Good job this isn't analysing Anfield anymore. The thing I was going to say, I mean...
Get yourself a job at the BBC for £70,000.
You kind of throw me off there. What I was going to say, Theo, is that I suppose the counter to that would be Liverpool probably look at that and think the midfielders have got now Gravenberch is probably able to play a bit better.
Who's sorry?
Gravenberch.
Thank you.
Gravenberch is probably a better player on the ball than Fabinho was, in terms of like being able to move and drive. That's probably their counteract to losing Trent, if you know what I mean, how they kind of redevelop that.
Well, that's why it's going to be interesting to see how they set up this year, because they've looked at the squad last year, thought probably need a little bit more pace, so got 2 of the quickest fullbacks around. No, they've lost Trent, so right, we're going to need a playmaker here, someone who can play those passes. Got Verts in. But then Gravenberch, he is obviously good at running through those lines, carrying the ball forward, shrugging off challenges. He said himself he'd like to get forward a little bit more, even though he's enjoying being a number 6. He certainly took the opportunity to a couple of times yesterday, leaving Enyoni to be the deeper man. But then you've got McAllister there as well. So Bosley, who I know he was number 10 yesterday, but he could be the deeper option. Like, these are midfielders that work hard, good on the ball, and you have got a little bit more creativity in there. But we've still just got to see how Liverpool line up as the summer goes along. If they still go and pursue another centre forward, or what happens with Diaz, what happens with Nunez, there's still pieces to fall into place here. But until we've got that whole picture, you're not going to see what Arne Slot's exactly wanting from the entire 11. You're just going fullbacks quicker, so they're going to be overlapping, underlapping, getting those crosses in, trying to get behind the defence, or doing those sorts of passes that Doyley's just mentioned. But it's a talented squad already, isn't it? They won the Premier League, and they've been star players wherever they've been, pretty much, haven't they? The fact that Kirkers has gone in the space of 2-3 years from Eredivisie to Premier League champions, Frimpong having to come up from Celtic, go to Leverkusen, that's a very quick progression as well. Like, they're in a good place to take those next steps.
I thought he was good second half when he came on. Endo.
Yes,
Endo
he
was good.
actually.
I missed him this summer.
Yeah, Endo. And what I would say about him, I made this comment to you, didn't I, during the game, is that whenever he's on the pitch, he always looks like he's involved. He always looks like he's around things that are happening. There was one great bit where he did it. I mean, Gravenberch did a great turn in the first half, and he got away from the play, just completely sold him a dummy, and he was away. But this was more of an Endo one where I think it was like 2 players were in front of him and 2 were behind him, and he just did a bit of a turn and got away from all 4 of them and went back and then passed it around them. So, and then Curtis Jones kept it nice and simple in midfield. I think you could just tell the difference in standard between obviously the Premier League winners and a team that finished mid-table championship, just below mid-table, wasn't it? Yeah, can't quite remember, but the Endo was another one in the second half. Gakpo did well as well, I thought.
I was going to say, I'd imagine we'll see a bit more of Endo this year because they've got that strength coming into the midfield. It's not going to be 4 into 3 anymore. You've got a good 5-6 options there. And Slot's got more trust in the squad because they've just won in the league, but he's added his own players to it as well.
I wonder whether you might see him at centre back a bit more
That's
as well.
an option too,
The thing is, we haven't, obviously we're still very early in the transfer window, and Liverpool's dealings have been on hold for obvious reasons. Might be for a little bit longer, but still Kwanzaa, and down to 3 centre backs. Canate. There's still a lot of speculation about Real Madrid. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if something happens there.
Gomez's injury,
and
problem.
Gomez is suddenly left with. Go on, Virgil, off you go. So I think while obviously Liverpool are looking at other centre-backs such as Mark Gay, Crystal Palace, Endo's a centre-back which was utilised only a couple of times, I think. It was in January, wasn't it? Tottenham in the League Cup.
He did Southampton as well.
Tottenham in the League, Tottenham in the League Cup.
Maybe West Ham or Brighton. Did he come on one of those games?
Brighton, he played right back, didn't he?
Did he?
To try and... Well, it didn't work, whatever it was he was trying to do. But yeah, overall, Endo could be happy with what he'd done. And it's very, very in stark contrast to what happened in the first game of pre-season last year when he wasn't in the starting lineup and you kind of got the impression,
I thought he was in the... that was behind closed doors.
He's kind of got the impression, this might not be
and then there was
the
a bid
season
from
for
Marseille,
him.
wasn't there?
Yeah.
Yes, exactly,
At the time, yeah. They'll just go to the other end of the pitch. Darwin Nunez, I know you wrote in your talking points from the game yesterday that probably many people didn't expect him to kind of be getting a run out in Liverpool's first pre-season of the summer. Many people probably thought he might have moved on by this point. I mean, what do you kind of think of his performance, and maybe what does Darwin Nunez' season look like this year? Is it going to be at Anfield, or do you kind of expect him to go elsewhere?
It's hard to say because, for obvious reasons, Liverpool need to add to that attack, and whatever they planned at the start of the summer, something they could never plan has happened. But we know there is interest in Darwin Nunez. I know there are reports, was it over the weekend or on Friday, saying Napoli might be priced out of a deal now. I'm not sure if they ever put an official bid as such. We certainly never got anything confirmed by the club, but we know the interest was there. And then there's always going to be talk of Saudi Arabia. It's the Saudi Arabian clubs, they usually tend to move a little bit later in the market. And we know it's a World Cup year. Darwin Nunez can't really afford to be sitting on the bench for a full season. If he's going to stay at Liverpool, he needs to be playing more than he did last year. But to do that, he needs to be performing. He needs to be making an impact in the final third and scoring. And at least we've got glimpses of that against Preston. Like one of his first involvements, he didn't touch the ball, but he was chasing down the keeper. He was showing that work rate, which was something Arne Slot criticised at times last season. So it's certainly close to what you'd want from him. But it's whether he's still the right fit for Arne Slot. If something can click into place for him and he can become a success, a definitive success, great. But you wouldn't be surprised as well if Liverpool's resolve was tested and a side came in and matched the asking price, whatever that asking price is. It's certainly one to watch, but in the meantime, he's a Liverpool player and you're putting him on, starting him, he's scoring goals. Happy days. I thought it was telling that Chiesa started up front against him, but it's not something you can read into as much as maybe we could last year, because it was more of a mismatch 11, mixed match 11 than...
a mismatch 11?
Yeah.
What's that?
than it was last year when Slot basically went for the strongest 11 from the start.
Yeah, and Doyle, your kind of take on the situation is, will Darwin Nunez be at Liverpool, do you think, for this season, or it's hard to tell?
Again, I'll be the one to say it. Obviously, Liverpool are a striker down, so I think that does have to come into play at some point. Maybe not just quite yet, but... they have to think carefully of what happens. I think under normal circumstances, I think Nunez might have even gone, or not gone already now, but certainly would have been close to going. What I want to say on Nunez is that he's got a new look, hasn't he?
Yes.
He has got a new look for anybody who's not been paying any attention to
No one's noticed
it. Yeah. Anyway, yes, so that would be the Nunez thing. I can't see how he'll have changed over the past 2 months to fit into a Slot team, unfortunately.
I'd imagine that there's a lot of speculation over Luis Diaz as well, but when the club are adamant they don't want to sell him, unless they get a ridiculous offer from Saudi, Diaz is the one who fills that void, and then they'd still go and look and sign a centre forward. But you are just waiting for that offer to come in to sell someone, and then we don't know what's going to happen with Chiesa, because he said earlier in the summer that he was tempted by a return to Italy. And pretty much a lot of these transfer links have gone quiet over the last few weeks, even before obviously the tragic news with Diogo Jota. But Liverpool's business, as Doyle said, will be on hold for a little while now. Like, more greater things, more important things are on mind at the moment. And when they do take those steps, it will be handled sensitively. And it's just waiting for those offers to come in and then react to it with who you want to bring in yourself.
I mean, they brought in 6 players already, including a goalkeeper who didn't half get some grief.
Yeah, did. Poor Freddie
It
Woodman.
was a bit harsh, that was, yeah. Very harsh.
Just
let him enjoy his game. Come on.
They're looking ahead then to kind of the next stage of Liverpool's pre-season. They've got, I think, 12 days now until they play AC Milan in Hong Kong. Obviously, probably fly. Obviously, well, they will fly out obviously a bit earlier than that.
They'll have to get going now.
Morning of the game. I suppose kind of what does Liverpool's pre-season look like then? I mean, from now until then, would you imagine kind of just going through the usuals, kind of getting the new players settled into the squad and making sure they're all kind of ready for that tour? Because when they get back from there, they've got the double header against Bilbao, and then it's kind of straight into the Community Shield, and then obviously the season starts pretty much straight after that. So they kind of got a bit of time now, but when they get back from Hong Kong, it's pretty relentless, isn't it?
Yeah, I'd imagine the majority of the next 12 days will carry on behind closed doors, letting them get into a position where they are ready to start a new season and come to terms more with what's happened. It will be getting those new signings settled in and getting a feel for what your squad is going to look like going into the campaign, which players are part of the plans, who's part of the starting 11, and who is available for transfer. and then you look at who could come in and fill those voids. It is going to be an unprecedented summer for them, a difficult summer for them. But as I said earlier, it's good that they've got these 12 days where they can regroup away from the spotlight. It's a big challenge for Arne Slot, the coaching staff, and whoever else they've got helping the players here. But they'll handle it sensitively. And then they're going to have to be ready when they go on tour because of the commitments that usually come with these sorts of things. And then Anfield, that's going to be really, really emotional against Bilbao. Like the scenes we saw against Preston, but next level, then Wembley, then Premier League. You got to be ready. It seems harsh to say, isn't it? Life moves on, but football doesn't stop for anyone. And it's only a few weeks away now that Premier League title defence gets underway against Bournemouth. They've got that first step out of the way. They've got back on the pitch. They've felt the love and the support of the fan base, not just the Liverpool fan base too, the football community with Preston really stepping up. There's something they're going to feel throughout the summer wherever they go.
Absolutely. That's all we've got time for on today's episode. Not sure what schedule is for the rest of the week. Friday podcast, Thursday, Friday podcast, whenever.
Both.
But thanks to Theo and Ian for joining me today, and we'll be back later in the week.